Hello, everyone. Ray Moran with the iiBV here to talk with a tremendous panel regarding the Middle East, North Africa, one of the most vibrant parts of the world today in terms of economic activity and a high growth region for the valuation profession. We're lucky to have with us today Muath Alkhalaf, who'll be representing TAQEEM, the Saudi Authority of Accredited Valuers, who'll be talking about their activities as the valuation organization. Hakim Abdeljaouad of Kroll and Mohammad Araj with Deloitte. Gentlemen, thank you for joining. Muath, would you like to start us off and perhaps give an overview of TAQEEM and its activities?
Thanks a lot, Ray, for the introduction. I would like to introduce myself to the audience. I am Muath Alkhalaf, TAQEEM registered valuer, licensed for business valuation as well as real estate. I have been practicing valuations for almost the last 12 years and been in the profession since I started my career. And I'm very happy to be with you today.
Thank you very much. Hakim, perhaps over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Ray. This is Hakim Abdeljaouad, Managing Director at Kroll and leading the valuation practice for the Middle East. As you all know, Kroll, formerly known as Duff & Clubs, is one of the leading global independent valuation firm, and always happy to be with you, Ray, on this call.
Thank you so much for joining. And Mohammed, please.
Yeah, hi, Ray. Thank you for the quick introductions. As a quick background about myself, so my name is Mohammad Araj. I'm a partner with Deloitte in the valuations practice in the Middle East. I have been practicing for the past 18 years. And that's my background, really.
Well, welcome all, and thank you for joining. Perhaps to benefit our audience, it might be good just to give a bit of background on the size of TAQEEM, the number of valuers. Muath, you were mentioning just a few minutes ago as we were chatting that there's now approximately 3,000 valuers within TAQEEM between real estate, plant machinery, and business valuation. It seems like it's a growing organization.
Yes, definitely. TAQEEM is one of the most growing organizations in the region and maybe internationally. Since TAQEEM started its operations in 2014, there are almost or more than 3,000 members between all disciplines, between business valuation, real estate, or machinery and equipment. And the number is growing. It's not stopping. The courses are offered, and we try to attract as much as we can from younger generations to the profession.
Yeah, and thank you for that. And TAQEEM is very interesting in that it works with many of the larger valuation organizations worldwide in helping establish standards and education programs, including the American Society of Appraisers, the Royal Institute of Chartered Surveyors, the CFA Institute, as well as the iiBV for business valuation education. So you really have a great collection of education, knowledge, and experience for your members.
Yeah, that's true, Ray. We also would like to thank iiBV for the great partnership that we have in terms of developing our education for business valuation. It's been a very successful partnership. We haven't made it this far without the help of iiBV. You mentioned also our partnership with other organizations. We do actually have mutual recognition, mutual designation with other international societies like the American Society of Appraisers, RICS, and for both real estate and business valuations. And that, I think, is an international recognition for TAQEEM in a very short period of time. and we wish for more.
And TAQEEM has really emerged as a leader within our profession worldwide. I know TAQEEM was very active in creating the business valuation glossary, which is now out, translating many publications into Arabic, as well as hosting the International Valuation Conference in Riyadh in October.
And I take this opportunity to invite all the people or professionals who are in this profession, or if they are beneficiaries of valuation, to come to Riyadh and join the International Valuation Conference that will take place in early October this year. The conference will cover all disciplines, but with emphasis on business valuations, and also other disciplines like real estate or machinery and equipment.
And thank you for that. It truly has been impressive how quickly TAQEEM has grown through the years. Very impressive story. Hakim, would you mind telling us a bit about the activities of Kroll, major services, what you offer your clients, and where you're located?
Yeah, so effectively, like, we have now 3 offices in the Middle East, in Dubai, Abu Dhabi, and Riyadh, that we just opened. We provide valuation services across the region, Saudi and UAE being the largest markets, but there is also like a fair amount of activity in other neighboring countries like Qatar, Egypt, Oman, and we feel the need increasing in terms of valuation, as you know, the different actors in the market are getting more professional, implementing best practices, and you know, demanding for a better governance. So there is like probably Mohammed like can echo that, but there is like more and more demand for independent valuation in the market.
Well, that's a wonderful segue to Mohammed. Mohammed, perhaps is that what you're seeing in the market also?
Yeah, well, what we're seeing in the market is a tremendous level of activity that has been really consistent over the past 3 years, even throughout the COVID period. Our teams have been extremely busy and growing. We've seen the highest level of activity, obviously, in our biggest market in the GCC, which is currently Saudi Arabia, also followed by the UAE and perhaps Qatar as well. But definitely the level of activity and the need of specialized services that are specifically dedicated to certain professions are needed as our clients are becoming much more sophisticated, and also as the services becoming much more complex, and some of the driving force behind that is the cross-border activity also that we're working on. So yes, I agree to what Hakim said on that front.
Several interesting comments in there, Mohammed, and I'll come back to them, especially cross-border activity. But I'm also very curious, knowing of the strategic plan Vision 2030, did you find a lot of the activity around some of those key industries that the government is targeting in Saudi Arabia for growth, diversifying its economic activity?
Definitely a lot of a big portion, significant part of our business is driven by in Saudi Arabia is driven by the 2030 vision and the giga projects that are currently being implemented, whether that specifically relates to valuations or business planning, transaction support in general, or even other part of Deloitte's businesses, such as the risk advisory and corporate governance. But definitely the 2030 vision is a significant, if not the significant driver of the activity in the market.
Mohammed, I'm always amazed at the scale of some of the projects in the kingdom, some of the giga projects, NEOM and others. Would you mind giving a brief description of some of these things, if that's something you're comfortable with?
Well, I wouldn't be able to discuss specifics because I just don't want to get into each and every specific project, some of which we have from my previous knowledge on working on some of those. But as we know, the giga projects are all across the 2030 vision, and the one that you've noted, NEOM, is really one that we're seeing significant level of activity on recently.
I would agree. And Hakim, are you seeing many different industries now as being the drivers within Saudi Arabia?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, like there are like the sectors that the government's focusing on. So obviously with the big project, everything related to infrastructure, of course, real estate, but we see also like other sectors like entertainment now, which is a new one in Saudi Arabia, food and beverage. You have like lots of new kind of companies or even funds investing in the food and beverage industry, or again, entertainment. You see also like lots of tech investments, and that's also like a newly kind of created kind of activity for many actors. So yes, I would say lots of new sectors, but at the same time, the traditional one also like being well represented, whether it's oil and gas or infra.
Yes, I agree. And infrastructure is always a fascinating one, just in terms of the involvement and just seeing the scale of the projects that are out there at the moment. Muath, thinking of TAQEEM once again, as these services become more complex and the focus is on many industries other than oil and gas and petrochemical, it almost sounds like there might be a need for specialty valuation courses offering your members and prospective valuers.
Absolutely, that's what we always discuss as valuers, the need for specific topics or specific experience in such industries, especially complex industries, complex businesses. In terms of education, TAQEEM has a plan to offer, and still doing that, to offer industry-specific valuation education. For example, I believe today we have a webinar about the valuation of marine assets. That's a very specific and complex topic that I think most of the valuers would like to know and understand, as well as the valuation of private jets or airplane or aircrafts. Those kind of topics are also offered by TAQEEM with the, I would say, the authority that is regulating this kind of businesses or kind of activity. I just want to highlight when you asked about the market size of the valuation market. In 2021, the M&A industry or M&A activity in KSA or in the MENA region has witnessed a surge in the number of deals, as well as the deal value. The deal value reached to around $100 billion, which is the I would say the M&A was one of the main drivers of business valuations, business valuation services that will include purchase price allocations for financial reporting purposes, as well as decision making or transaction support for those kind of deals. One thing is also to be mentioned is the litigation and financial reporting purposes, which are a big portion of market size is for those purposes. The IFRS has been adopted in KSA in 2017 and gradually adopting the fair value approach and also for public sector or public companies, I would say. It has been a challenge for TAQEEM to educate more people, to educate and accredit more valuers to cover the market. And it's been always a challenge, and that's why TAQEEM is working hard to have enough valuers in the market. As you know, the valuation profession is regulated in case 8, and the practice should only be through licensed companies or licensed firms.
Yeah, and that's a great point. I believe a report must be signed by a licensed member of TAQEEM to be accepted by the regulators or by the legal system.
Yes, and something is important. Also, all the regulations, apart from the accredited valuers law, they recognize the valuers today more than ever. If we speak about litigation, the Ministry of Justice has, instructed that no valuation assignments goes to other than accredited members of TAQEEM. Also, for other regulations, for capital market authority or other authorities that they oversee the regulations that require the valuation services. If we talk about the bankruptcy law or liquidation law, we have it all ask or namely ask for TAQEEM members to be hired for this kind of job.
Very impressive. And Hakim, when we were chatting before, you mentioned that restructuring are a very active service for Kroll in the region.
Yeah, that's right. We provide like restructuring services and corporate finance restructuring services, so including capital markets and transaction advisory, and that includes always like a valuation part. So in any restructuring or any kind of M&A activity, there will be a valuation element, and so we go together to the market, and there is always a demand for us like to help and inform the decision of the investor or the board of a company to take the right decision on selling or buying an asset or a company. So yeah, long story short, yes, we do provide all these all kind of services in that field, in addition like to financial intelligence and investigation, for which the Kroll brand is very well known in the region, which is also like help like the investor like to know where they're putting their money and preserve their reputation at the same time.
Okay. And in the region, are you finding the valuers are primarily with Big Four accounting firms and the global valuation firms, or are there many smaller firms now emerging?
Yeah, you're right. Like you touched like very important interesting point. Like the particularity of the region is that like historically used to have like many kind of small firms providing valuation services. But I believe that now with the TAQEEM license and a better structuring of the practice in the region, you have less of these companies, and I would say like our sector and business service line is being more kind of organized, and people recognize the benefit of having like a more trusted party or more trusted advisor, whether it's a Big Four or someone kind of more independent like Kroll, to help them and to assist them when they need like valuation services.
Okay, thank you. Mohammed, you mentioned a very interesting point before, where a lot of the activity you see are cross-border investments into the region. Could you expand on that a bit more?
Yeah, I guess part of it, Praise, is related to, as I said at the beginning, our portfolio of business really is is segmented between like private and public. If I was to use a very broad term, you talked about diversification of the economy and so on. So a lot of the efforts in diversifying the economy comes from investments that are done abroad, whether it's in the utilities, whether it's in the technology, which is taking a big part now, and that's all public news, I guess, and then the real estate as well. So many of those involve cross-border transactions where government sector in general is investing in those sectors abroad. So that's where it comes to cross-border activity, and where we team up with our international teams in specific countries to provide the local context in evaluation. But the other part also, and I think Muath touched based on that, is in terms of the private businesses and the need to have specialized valuers and accredited valuers. And he touched upon the litigation support services that valuers do. And part of that is really an outcome of the succession planning that is happening in Saudi, because a lot of the private businesses are either in their third or even fourth generation now. And they either start doing a proper succession planning, or we see some litigation cases, which is unfortunate, but sometimes it is needed to try and just value businesses for some of the existing shareholders to exit or to buy others. So, and some of that portfolio as well in the private business would involve either a cross-border in terms of other GCC investments, or some investments in Europe or in North America as well.
Well, given what you've mentioned, it really sounds like not just the regulators, but really the marketplace is becoming more sophisticated in the services it needs and is asking for.
Definitely, and I guess as I said at the beginning, specialization here is needed. Investors are not like what they've used to be 20 years back, where you had the typical auditors doing a valuation and that was it. Now they understand international valuation standards. They understand the existence of TAQEEM. A lot of the tasks that we're getting actually are asking us in the RFP sometimes if we are TAQEEM accredited and licensed or not. And that shows the level of sophistication that is currently in the market, which is a great thing, because we would rather always deal with sophisticated investors who would understand and appreciate the effort that we're putting in. Because that makes things just easier when we discuss the findings at the end.
I understand. Yeah, speaking of the markets, Mohammed, data transparency is always an issue, either listed companies or M&A activity, as Muath mentioned. Have you seen now data much more available than what it was 5 or 10 or 15 years ago?
Well, I think also that question could have two sub-questions in it. I guess the first part is the localization of the international content, and that is that has improved a lot. I have a few of my team members in Saudi who are currently taking the TAQEEM courses, and they're saying that it's very relevant to what we do on a day-to-day basis, and it's upskilling them. So I think in terms of the availability of local content and tailored information to the local market, that is really that has really developed, and it's a significant improvement on what we used to have a few years back. And I'm giving honestly credit here to TAQEEM and to the effort that they have been doing. Another part of it, which I think we still need to work on, is the data points available in the market. So what clients don't like to see, and we do get that, is a lot of referrals to comparable companies that say that are international, that are either based in different markets or based on in international stock exchanges, and they say, why aren't you referring to some local data points? And I guess there are some challenges here, is that sometimes you don't find the depth in terms of industries and companies that are listed on the stock exchange to an extent where you can find a good comparable. And that's nothing that anyone can do anything about, because that is just until they list and the data becomes available, there's nothing much that we can do here. But the second part is the availability of data that is perhaps specific to private companies, and not disclosing private data, but perhaps having some research or having some authority that can take that data and publish it in a way where it remains anonymous, but it provides certain local data points about industry trends, about statistical data that can be used, whether that is for the private sector in general or for even transactions, because as you know, it's not only about listed companies and traded multiples, it's also about comparable transactions. And we tend to lack a lot of transparency on the local transactions that happen in the market. And that's one of the reasons we don't usually use them as a primary source of concluding a value.
I understand data transparency, having lived and worked in China, very emerging market at the time, and clearly you're looking for best information available. Hakim, you and I were talking about data transparency a bit yesterday. Would you like to expand upon what you're seeing in terms of data in the markets?
No, I mean, I really kind of agree with Mohammed. But there is kind of positive things here as things are improving. I mean, especially with the amounts of IPOs and the number of IPOs that we see, whether it's Saudi Arabia or the UAE, which hopefully will create like more data points for us like to rely on, and will also like introduce and more transparency and more better governance in general. So I would say in general, things will get better.
Yeah, and just knowing of the activity of the Kroll teams in terms of international cost of capital, are rates similar throughout the region, or are they more? Do they vary more by country?
I mean, we currently like produce like cost of capital in general, but we increasingly doing dedicated things per country, and we will be doing also like dedicated things for the Middle East. So yes, we're spending more effort for the region to be able like to service it better and to have a dedicated cost of capital for each country in the region.
I'm sure all the analyticals who are following this discussion would love to get into that discussion in a very large way. Muath, that leads me to another point about TAQEEM. I know for years you've been talking with and helping other valuation organizations in the region, although many of these other countries might still be primarily real estate centric when it comes to valuation. I think there's a lot of emerging activity on the business valuation front. Are you helping many other organizations in MENA?
Since I am working as a valuation practitioner, I am not full-time with TAQEEM. I may not have updated information about this. But I used to work for TAQEEM, but now I'm a board member there. But we used to receive requests from other countries in the MENA that they want our support to set up a valuation professional organization for their markets and to regulate or follow similar steps that TAQEEM did. We have received requests from different regions, also from African regions, and we are working closely with Kuwait and Bahrain and UAE as well, to have best practices in the region in terms of standards and best practices in terms of education and material that's required to improve and develop the valuers in today's market. But I don't think we currently have something to work on to establish or to help in establishing a new organization. But we have been offering our courses in different regions. We offered courses in Egypt, Kuwait, UAE, and Bahrain as well. and we will be happy to assist in that regard.
And thank you for that. It really is interesting, not just within the Middle East, North Africa, but I know that Africa itself, including South Africa, Southern Africa, and the countries nearby, really are viewed as also high growth potential. I know Nick Talbot of the International Valuation Standards Council is very keenly interested in Africa, and we have started discussions with a local individual as well in the continent about expanding valuation education. So we're quite excited about the prospects throughout all of Africa. It's really just a fascinating region.
Yeah, the valuation profession is growing all over the world, and the need for a regulatory body is now, I think, a must for large markets. And our experience with that in case A was excellent. And thanks to our partners in getting up to here, and we look for more. As I said, we'll be happy to assist and share our experience, our journey, our challenges that we have for any other organizations that they want to take it next level.
Okay. Hakim, I know that you were previously posted, I believe, in London for a period of time. Just thinking of the differences in markets and nuances of the market, UK or otherwise, to what you see in the Middle East. Any comments or thoughts you can offer on that?
I mean, like I would say like the main thing which kind of I mean, you can notice like when you arrive in the region is the composition of the actors in the region. First of all, like you have lots of sovereign wealth funds, which you won't find anywhere in the world, and they are leading the show in terms of investments, in terms of also like setting up the rules and the right governance for themselves and for potentially their child funds. And you have also like lots of family offices, which are increasingly kind of structuring themselves like private equity or investment firms, which is a good thing and a great news for everyone because that's more transparency and the need for more valuation in the market. And that's kind of what we see a lot in the Middle East. Like you have like these two kind of factors in addition like to big corporates. And these are the two actors who are kind of leading the trend in relation like to diversification. And when I say diversification, I talk about like geographical one and also like sectorial diversification, because they are the one investing increasingly in new sector. They are the one who are investing increasingly outside of the region to diversify their exposure. And this is where they need like more sophisticated valuation advices, but also like they need also like assistance from providers who can position themselves anywhere in the world. So not only local providers, but providers who can have the geographical reach in other geographies, in particular the US and Europe.
I would imagine the funds themselves probably have been changing their requirements in terms of the data and the questions they're looking to have answered within their valuation reports.
Absolutely. I mean, like, if we talk about like the sovereign wealth funds to start with these actors, I mean, initially they were more kind of development funds. And even now in the names, they change like to being investment funds. And they are implementing like best practices when it comes like to valuation. And they even get to the extent that now remuneration and bonuses are linked to valuation, which needs, I mean, like for obvious reasons, needs to be assessed independently. So that's kind of a new thing, which is a big change for the region, and which will have an impact going forward, like on all other actors in the market.
Yeah, and again, the valuation profession, particularly in Saudi Arabia, really is quite young in terms of when it first started, and has progressed amazingly quickly to where it is right now, both in terms of the regulators, the market, and the skill and expertise required of the valuers.
That's true. And there is like a demand from the market, a demand from external investors, because at the end of the day, these countries want also like to attract like foreign investors, and also it was also like a response after certain events in the market, which like were kind of bad enough, and hopefully that we won't see going forward with what has been implemented.
Yeah. Mohammed, what are your thoughts about growth prospects throughout the rest of Middle East, North Africa? Any countries stand out as having the highest potential, or perhaps the most activity that's coming around now?
Well, from what we're seeing in the market and what clients are talking about, they're interested in particular areas or particular countries in North Africa. But what is being discussed most is perhaps the Egyptian market, whether it's given the incentives that are being provided to foreign investors, perhaps even the depth and the size of the local market in terms of the population, and the proximity as well of Egypt to the GCC countries. So we're seeing that as like perhaps the most discussed market in terms of North Africa.
Very interesting. Hakim, which countries do you think of as high potential in terms of growth?
I mean, yes, Egypt is growing very fast. I mean, I think lately ADQ announced a dedicated allocation of 10 billion only to Egypt and Jordan, just to give an example, and they had already invested quite a lot. So Egypt demographically, and it's quite an interesting market, and it's very near the GCC, and there are lots of strong ties. I mean, apart from that, I mean, again, I mean, for the foreseeable future, kind of Saudi Arabia will continue to be at the front, but there are also interesting things going on in Oman or Qatar, and there are smaller markets by size, but they're also implementing the right kind of practices and measures to make sure that things are done properly.
In those countries, are you seeing the same scale of investments as you might see in Saudi Arabia? Investments in infrastructure, large cities, projects like that?
Not in the same size. I mean, Saudi Arabia, what's happening in Saudi Arabia is really exceptional. And we see investments, and the unit of measure is more billions, and everything is in billions of dollars. And I was struck by that when last time I went to Saudi Arabia, because in the discussion that I had with few people, I mean, everything was in billions of dollars. So quite impressive. In those countries, there are few things going on, and there are lots of investments. What we see that, of course, the size is smaller, but the same, they're modernizing the economy, and all these economies in the region, they have one common kind of topic, which is diversifying their economy from oil and gas. So that goes with investment in other sector through their sovereign wealth funds, but also encouraging I mean, international companies or other investors to invest in the country, in whether it's in technology or healthcare or all these sectors.
It certainly has been impressive growth throughout the entire region, which makes me think of best practices once again, Muath. I know at the International Valuation Conference this fall in Riyadh, I think the entire first day of the 3-day conference is dedicated toward global best practices. Day 2 is actually talking about big data, which is actually fascinating. And day 3 is actually talking about coordinating valuation disciplines, real estate, plant machinery, and business valuation. So really quite sophisticated topics to be discussed.
Yeah, it's going to be 3 days rich with discussions and workshops. And as you said, the topics were picked carefully, and we hope that the conference will deliver the message that we want to deliver. Just want to touch base on the growth. Given the elevated oil prices in the region, because MENA is uneven. The countries, some are oil importers and some are oil exporters. The growth in oil exporter countries will be in a higher pace. The World Bank has estimated the growth for the MENA region as a whole at 5.2% this year, compared to 3.3% last year, which was the start of recovery from COVID. And now with the continuous recovery and elevated prices, it is expected to grow even more in 2020 as well as 2023. And this will also lead for more M&A transactions and advisory services that is required, and the need for developing and regulating the valuation practice in case A has always been important. But I think in the next a few years from today, I would say it's a very critical time, and it's an opportunity for valuers as well to get the most of this boom in the economy.
I'm very curious, Muath. Worldwide, I know the valuation profession is looking to attract younger university level and young professionals into the valuation profession as a career option. And because many of us believe the term is sunsetting in our careers, are you able to attract young individuals to become valuers? Is that quite easy to do through local universities or just through education programs?
Yeah, and there is an interesting thing to say. One of the universities, large universities in Riyadh, introduced TAQEEM valuation courses for their finance or corporate finance students. And we noticed that the graduates are more interested to join TAQEEM courses afterwards to complete the membership requirement. And that led us to increase our coordination with universities to attract those younger generations to the profession. It's a promising profession, and it's new in the marketing case, and it's offering an excellent career for those who are studying finance or business in general in Saudi Arabia.
Well, that's exciting to hear on behalf of the profession. Mohammed, if I can ask, have you been able to attract young individuals in your offices throughout the region? It's not a problem for you?
Yeah, and I guess the driver of that is the demand in the market. I guess if we just like in a minute go back to what Hakim was saying in terms of what he witnessed in the region and how the sovereign wealth funds are setting the tone and acting as investment firms and private equities and so on. This has created a lot of demand in all the GCC countries that I've worked on. I've lived in Qatar, Kuwait, and in Saudi. Definitely Saudi by scale is much bigger in terms of the current investments and the bigger projects they're having. But the need for proper governance because of the compensation and it's linked to the performance of the investments and the big family conglomerates that are existing and their succession planning, and all this has created a tremendous demand for the need of valuation professionals, and accordingly, it's been known in the market, whether those are even joining us sometimes from the big family groups to understand what their businesses are worth and to understand corporate finance principles and work with us for a few years to get that experience, or whether they're looking for it as a long-term career plan for their future. In both fronts, we've been very successful in recruiting and finding candidates that are really eager and willing and capable of being developed in that area.
Terrific. And Hakim, it sounds like Kroll has had no problem in growing and staffing out your offices as you continue to expand.
Yeah, I mean, having said that, like Ray, it is challenging currently, like and Mohammed said so. I mean, like it's a hot market. I mean, like you can, I mean, and what we need to do is like more kind of to recruit like young chaps, educate them, train them, and to have more of those like on the market. But yeah, I mean, like for the time being, you have lots of demand for independent valuation and valuation, but you need to take the time like to train like those people, and it can be a bit challenging sometimes. I mean, like Kroll, we managed to do that because we have like a high level of mobility in the firm, so we can move like people quite easily from one office to another, and people like demand that, they want that flexibility. So thank God like that worked quite well. But in general, I mean, even in the region, we continue to invest. We want to hire like young grads and train them and grow them in the firm.
Well, that is indeed quite exciting to hear that it's been growing so quickly. And of course, one of the challenges I hope you do not encounter is, as more firms perhaps enter our profession, they start poaching some of your trained staff for their own growth, but we'll see how that goes worldwide. I always like to follow up with everyone asking about following thoughts and observations or closing comments, just going around. Muath, are there things that you should tell our audience that they should know about Saudi Arabia or the region or TAQEEM?
Yes, maybe I would like to mention that TAQEEM, as the regulator of valuation practice in Saudi Arabia, adopted the IVS standards, and that's the standard that the whole country is adopting, and all the valuation reports that need to be delivered to the clients or beneficiaries should be in accordance with IVS. TAQEEM is also published evaluation guidance in each discipline, which can be found in TAQEEM website, official website, both in English and Arabic languages, available for download publicly. That's maybe what I wanted to say.
Thank you for that. Hakim, any thoughts or comments from you, please?
No, I mean, I would say like from all parts, I mean, like things are going in the right direction, whether it's coming from the regulator, similar to TAQEEM, or from different actors on the market. I would say like on the consulting side or on the client side, everyone wants like valuation to be done properly. And I mean, all the ingredients are here, like to build kind of a strong environment and a strong kind of governance framework. And that's a great news for everyone, like whether it is for investors or for clients. So I think it can only be positive, and it will be there like to support like the growth of the region. So I'm quite positive for what's ahead of us, like in the coming years.
Thank you for that. Mohammed, any thoughts from you?
Perhaps just as final thoughts, it's definitely interesting time to practice in the GCC in general, in Saudi in particular, given the exposure that the young practitioners are also getting in terms of the industries, in terms of the purpose of the valuations, whether financial reporting, M&A, and so on. On industries, we're talking about utilities, real estate, technology, when it comes to government mainly, and we're talking, and also entertainment, obviously, which is a big thing now in Saudi Arabia. And in terms of private businesses, we're getting a lot in consumer products, we're getting a lot in logistics, healthcare, education. So definitely it's really interesting times, and the transformation that is currently happening is is at a different scale. The word and the term giga project is just like everywhere now in Saudi, and it's exciting times for everyone.
I totally agree. It's an exciting region. The growth is really a pleasure to watch, and I'm quite sure it's going to continue going forward. Gentlemen, thank you all for your time and for joining us. I'm sure the audience appreciates it. Thank you, and wish you all a great rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great day. Thank you.